use them extensively, and I find them as one of the easiest and most fundamental ways of reminding myself of the truth. Several times during each service, every Sunday, we use affirmations in this church. And I'm sure a lot of you know we use a lot of affirmations in this church. So I'd like to start by sharing with you the affirmation for this morning's message. And when it comes up, I'd like to invite you to say it with me 3 times. But I'd also like to invite you, as you're saying it, to really internalize it. The affirmation we're going to use is, today I will judge nothing. And that's a good thing to think about. And as I was preparing for the message earlier this week, I was very fortunate. I've been rearranging some things at our office because I think I mentioned that we donated a lot of filing cabinets and stuff to the organization in Las Vegas that the Friends of the Church run. And so I came upon this rather large box of old messages. And it seems that years ago, when Pastor Mike, when the church was bigger, they would record all of his messages, and somebody would transcribe them. So I have this huge box of his messages, which I think is wonderful because probably most of us here haven't heard them, or certainly haven't heard them in a long time. So they'll be, dynamic to help me at least as a springboard. I mean, I don't want to sit here and read verbatim, everything you wrote, but there's some wonderful ideas. Although this first one that I got, I did worry about it because I have a good friend who is one of the best promoters of our church, although she only comes once a year on my birthday. But she says, the thing about John's church is they teach, they don't preach. And so I think that's a wonderful philosophy because nobody wants to, get themselves up on Sunday morning, especially an hour earlier today, and come and get preached at. And so we like to share messages that are teaching, that teach us, about life and how to live better lives and happier lives that are more prosperous. And so when I was reviewing this initially, I thought, well, that's kind of a judgmental thing to, go around and tell people, stop judging. But as we talk a little bit further, you're going to see that, it's actually such a freeing thing to walk through life without any judgments, to not judge anybody. And it is very challenging because, like I said, I started with this on Monday, and just driving down the street, going to the supermarket, or being in a group of friends, I had to stop as my mind just clicked into its automatic thing of judging other people and say, wait, today I won't judge. Today I won't judge. And so every 20 minutes or so, I had to restart that, today I won't judge, because we as human beings, we fall into that. And in fact, as part of the message that Mike had written, we know that in this book, this is filled with judgments from Genesis to Revelations. It's just filled with one judgment after another. And of course, a lot of times decisions are judgment. And so, it starts with Adam and Eve and a decision that they made, the judgment that they made in their life. And the interesting, wonderful thing is that when we do get to the book of Matthew, when we see Christ, the way shower, come in, we see a whole different way of life, because we see that and we read that Christ, he knew how to go through life without judgment. He didn't see the tax collector as the tax collector. He didn't see the prostitute as the prostitute. He didn't see the holy man as the holy man. He just saw the people, and he just let them be. And he just sat back and observed and thought, well, that's that person, and that's how they are, without this whole process of judging, which we've started from childhood. We learn about judgment because we're judged beginning. Our parents, no, don't do that, or don't eat this, but eat that. Don't think this, but do that. Don't, play with these children, and on and on. And then, of course, a lot of times we turn into parents, and then we do the same thing to our children. We start, don't eat that, do eat that, and, don't do this, don't play with these children, they're a bad influence. So we start by judging ourselves, and we pass that on. And so there's this whole culture of judgment and judging that's constantly taking place. And it's fundamental. It's the human experience. So today I will judge nothing. When we say nothing, we mean nothing. It doesn't mean, I'm not going to judge the way my friends talk. But you know what? If somebody cuts me off on the road, I'm still going to judge them. But can you imagine a whole day with judging nothing? Nothing. It's a challenge, but it's a possible challenge. We can do it because we know that as New Thought students, we strive to be Christ-like. And Christ was not judgmental. He knew not to judge. He saw people for just people. He didn't see the labels that, so many people have put on them. They were just people, and they were the same as he, and they were the same as you and me and everybody else, because we're all the same. We're all going through this life experience. And we look at maybe our nosy neighbor who we don't get along with, or the so-and-so, in church who gossips about everything all the time, or even, the homeless man on the corner. We have all these labels and all these judgments in life that we put on people. And the reality is, at the core of it, we're all exactly the same. And that is what Christ saw when he was on this earth, when he walked his way. Everybody was exactly the same, and he saw everything the same, and there was no judgment. And if you stop and think about that a minute, it's so freeing, because so much of the time when we're judging, we're clogging up our mind. And I know if I'm, with a group of friends and some people are saying things that, are inappropriate, or, any such thing, I get so clogged up in my mind, and then I can miss out on enjoying the experience of just being there with them, because my mind is racing about how, inappropriate it is, and I'm judging them. And sometimes, people are a certain way, and you can't put your finger on it, so then your mind is worrying because you're looking for this judgmental label to put on them, rather than just sitting back and being. What we need to do is just judge nothing. Judge nothing, because it is so freeing. It is so empowering. An interesting thing is, when we do go through this process of judging people, and a lot of it when we're doing that, because we're sort of thinking of, if I put this label on them, if I judge them, then, I'm doing these things to make the world a better place, or I'm correcting this wrong. But the reality is, God's got it handled. We really don't have any more power than him. If anybody, in this spectrum of life that we live has the power to correct and make things right, it's God. And I know that he's got a lot more power and influence than I do. So it's good to just leave it to him. And then, free yourself of that and just enjoy your life. Just enjoy your life. Let things be. Stand back and observe. I obviously never got to meet Hattie Garlish, who was the foundress of our fellowship. And I'm so excited because at the end of the month, we are celebrating our anniversary. And so back in 1927, the church was founded by Hattie Garlish, along with Dr. Garlish. But Hattie is remembered as the main founding party of the church. And she had a culture, and she tried to explain to people, of living life in neutral, just living life in neutral, sitting back, not driving, not worrying about anything, just living life in neutral and not judging. Because when we live these lives in neutral, things are so much easier, because we get to sit back and relax. And, if we might be embarrassed by a person or a circumstance or a situation, it doesn't have to bother us anymore, because we can just live in the moment. We can live in the now, enjoy that, and not worry about any judgments or any labels or any characterizations or anything else that's going on. Because again, at the core of it, we're all just people. We're all exactly the same on this earth. We're all going through this human experience. And if we can free ourselves and our minds and unclutter our mind from judgments and labels and worrying about what other people are doing, then we don't have to spend any time on that. We just get to spend time enjoying the situation, enjoying the life, enjoying the now, which is, as New Thought students, a main goal. We know that we want to, that we are destined to live these lives of great happiness and great health and great prosperity. And how we get there is by not judging, by just living these lives in neutral, without any labels or any judgments or any convolution to it. And it's absolutely possible. At the beginning of the year, we had a message one day, and we talked about seeing everything in the light. You may recall at the time, I had talked about everybody picking a circumstance or a situation that's going on in your life. Maybe you have a child who's going through some challenge, and you can't seem to get them to do what it is that you think they need to do, or, a niece, a nephew, a neighbor, whatever the circumstance or situation is. Rather than focusing on seeing that person doing what you think they need to do, just see that person flooded with light, the light of God. And we talked about just getting out of the way. Just get out of the way and let God do his work. And I had mentioned that this was a great experiment back in the 70s, and it was called An Experiment in Love. And so I was really delighted to come upon this pamphlet that talked about it. This talks about seeing a circumstance or a situation in the light, not forming any conclusions. Don't, pray, Johnny's gonna, get a job and do this right, and he's not going to associate with these bad people anymore. And if it's an issue of substance or alcohol or gambling or whatever it is, don't assign the solution, because we know that it's really God's solution to assign. And one way or another, it will be resolved to its highest good. And so we had talked earlier this year about taking a circumstance or a situation and every day visualizing that person just flooded in the light of God with no preconceived ideas, no notion. Don't figure out the path. Let that be God's idea. Let that be his way to resolve it, because we know in the end God is going to do it anyways, and so you'll just frustrate yourself and you may actually clog up the situation with that energy. So just see this person, or it could be a situation at work or any number of things, and just see it flooded. Spend a few moments every day visualizing that person or situation just flooded with light. No preconceived notion of how it's going to be resolved or what's going to happen. Just see it in the light. So we had given a period of about 3 months for our experiment, even though this says about 6 to 8 weeks. But so maybe near the end of the month, we'll talk and see if anybody had that circumstance or situation that they got to see in the light, and if it did come to a resolution. And we talked about the fact that a lot of times that resolution could simply be that you have focused on it so much that your way of thinking about it changed. Some situation that you may have thought was horrible and just unlivable actually doesn't even matter to you after all, because you've spent the time and you've concentrated, and by seeing that situation or circumstance in the light, you've realized that it's really not that bad after all. So you may change, the circumstance or the situation may change, the person may change, whatever it is, it's flooded in the light of God, and he's going to resolve it, and he's going to take that situation to its highest good. So as you're going through the week, ask yourself this question: am I enjoying the peace and tranquility of judging nothing? And then sit and think about that too. Realize the peace and the tranquility that comes with not getting emotionally invested in judging something or putting a label on something. You have such inner peace and inner tranquility by just letting it go and letting it go to God and knowing that he is ultimately the one in charge. So am I enjoying the peace and tranquility of judging nothing? So as you go through the week, hopefully you get the opportunity to sit aside, have a little quiet time, and ask yourself this question. And then if you see that you aren't, ask yourself, okay, well, how can I get there? How can I get there? And know that you can get there by trying to spend at least a day to start. And if you can't do a day, start, because I know, like I said, it's a challenge to do a whole day, unless you lock yourself in a dark room, and that's probably not very feasible for most of us. But start, even if it's, to start with a half a day or half an hour or a 15-minute period of no judging. I judge nothing. Today I judge nothing. And by doing that, you begin to enjoy the peace and the tranquility of this life in neutral, just like Christ, the way shower. And the good news is that we can give up judging anytime we choose. The good news is that we can claim this affirmation and be beyond worrying about what people say or what they do or how they dress or what they fail to do. Because we can give all that up and be at perfect peace and in a habitation of peace and tranquility every moment of our lives when we say, today I judge nothing. All right, I'd like to invite you to pray with me now. Eternal and loving God, we thank you so much for letting us see everything in the light. We thank you for letting us step out of the way and let you do your best work. We thank you, Lord, for letting us live lives of great peace and great tranquility. And we thank you for working with us as we do release judgment from our lives. We thank you in the name of faith, hope, and love. Amen.